welcome to a little bit more of an intimate setup than we're used to by now, but I figured I'd try something a little bit new. It can never hurt. You're a little bit closer now. I noticed on the last video you really couldn't see the board, so I kind of moved a little bit of stuff around, and now hopefully I checked the camera. It looks like you can actually read what's on the board now, which is good because I changed it around a little bit. It's a bit more helpful now. You can see kind of where I'm organizing my thoughts on this mini-series about the races. You didn't come here for another explanation like the last video, though. You came here to learn about the Vanir, sometimes called the Wanes if you're an anglicized nerd, but for all Old Norse purposes, they're the Vanir. So really, one of the first things we should talk about is the difference between the Aesir and the Vanir. You know, they're both gods, but the difference is what they're gods of. The Aesir are associated with war. Realistically, they're the war gods. You know, you have the god of thunder, stuff like that. And then the Vanir, they're considered the lesser gods. They're the gods of daily life stuff, like fortune and fertility, both of the land and the people. So in a culture that glorifies war and battle so much, you can really see why the Aesir were glorified above the Vanir. And yeah, that would be the difference between them. But unlike the Aesir, the Vanir don't actually have an origin story, and the first time that they're mentioned is in Völuspá. I believe it's line 15 to 21. You can find it actually on, I think it's voluspa.org or voluspa.com. But you can find the complete text, even the Old Nordic, like the English translation and the original Old Nordic text. But you'll see in there a little bit about Gullveig, which is the first Vanir that is mentioned, and it talks about her meeting with the Aesir, and it doesn't go very well. Here's actually a direct quote from it, how they described her, and it says, "The wide-seeing witch in magic wise, mind she bewitched that were moved by her magic, to evil women a joy she was." Not the kindest thing to say about someone, but it gets worse. So she tries to show off her magic skills. She was, they called her Hythe. It's another word to describe a vulva, which is a wise woman. Hythe can be translated as a shining one, but you get the point. She was a magic lady, pretty good at it. Too good at it. Apparently Odin and the other Aesir don't much care for magic or magic people because they deem it a danger to civilized society, and they take the only logical path and torture her, burn her alive and to death 3 different times, each time she comes back alive. And this is where you and I, and also Odin, start to realize that Gullveig is a lot more powerful than he and the other Aesir are. In the meantime, Gullveig's compatriots, the Vanir, are learning about what's happening to her, and they start to gather outside the gates of Asgard. And this starts a war between the war gods and the gods of the rest, and you'd be very surprised to find that it was a stalemate. So was everyone else. This was a stalemate, and both sides started to realize that neither one of them could win, and with heavy losses they decided, hey, let's just go home. It wasn't a very long hike for the besieged Aesir, I imagine, but they decided to trade hostages to kind of ensure this peace. The Vanir gave away Njord and his 2 daughters, Freya and Frey, to the Aesir in Asgard, and the Aesir gave away Honir, which was, if you'll remember, another word for one of Odin's brothers, and Mimir. The first 3, they were made into priests for the Aesir to look over some of their sacrifices and whatnot, and then Honir was made into a chieftain for the Vanir, and he wasn't trusted very much. Don't know why they made him chieftain in the first place, but he wasn't trusted very much. The Vanir started to notice whenever Mimir wasn't around, his answers to questions were a little bit iffy, shady, basically. Mimir was regarded as like one of, if not the smartest beings at the time, so he was a pretty solid captive to give, but they were really unsure about Honir, so they went ahead and sent Mimir's head back. Makes sense to me. Odin promptly revived the head. He breathed life back into it, just like he and his two brothers did with the first people. He put him in a well underneath Yggdrasil, cared for him, visited the well pretty often because he's smart boy and he wants to be smarter boy. But yeah, that doesn't really spark much of another conflict, surprisingly. They just try harder for peace, and that's where we get to this. Here's another quote, this time from Writing on Crete, Book 4. Crete doesn't seem related to Norse mythology, but it is super related if you believe Snorri. That's for another video though. So this quote that we'll end on talks a little bit about how they got assimilated. Really, I'm going to end the video after this quote is over, but what I want you to know is the Vanir were different until they weren't. They didn't have a real origin story. They were kind of a strange offshoot and aren't very respected in mythology. Let's do the poetry real quick. Thus Freya went to live with the Aesir in Asgard, and the Vanir were assimilated into the Aesir. She ended up married to Oder, not Odin, but then he died, and it goes on to say, he disappeared, and when Freya mourned her husband, mourned for her lost husband, she wept tears of gold, which turned into amber when they fell into the sea. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day.